Hello, everyone. Welcome to Players of Games. Today with me, I have Brandon,
Howdy.
Chris,
Hello.
and of course, me, Will. I'm here also. Today, we decided that we're going to talk about Skyrim. It's such an old game. Well, old when it comes to video games. Came out, I think it was like 2011 or so.
Yes.
2013?
No,
No, no.
It was 11? Okay.
it was 2011 because they deliberately released it on November 11th.
Uh,
Yep.
I just remember it was before 2012 because I remember people in my high school talking about it, and I graduated in 2012. But anyway, yeah, it's it was released in 2011, but it's still a great game even today. Of course, there's the new Elder Scrolls game being announced, but Skyrim's kind of become a cult classic. Would you agree?
I mean, it's
It,
not Morrowind.
I, I, cult classic generally feels like it's like something that's only liked by a small amount of people, but still reviewed well, but just never really, sold well. Whereas this game sold very popularly. I mean, heck, it's on how many different things now?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. This is a top charter, and it's got a significant community that backs it even to this day. From the new mods that come out on both the special edition and the original edition.
Like, cult classic really isn't the word for it. I wouldn't even necessarily call it a classic yet. But like, yeah, it was 8 years ago, almost to the day by a week or so, that from date of recording, but it's had so many different variations now come out. Like, it's on the Switch, and the Switch didn't release that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
but they made a port.
Hey, there's Skyrim VR. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but the Switch was the newest one. The VR one came out before it.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's gone places most games won't.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's credit to Bethesda in that this is a game with that sort of longevity, just because of how much they stuffed into the game. But that didn't come with it. Also came with its issues.
Oh, please.
Uh,
We all know the only reason it survived so long is because a whole bunch of soldiers took arrows to the knee.
You can buff it out, the arrows and the glitches.
I'm ashamed of both of you.
Don't buff out the glitches. I like it when my horses walk up mountains.
Like, peek behind the scenes. I'm of the three of us, I am the one who memes the most, and even I'm disappointed in you for that meme.
Okay, I just want to talk about like my first experience with Skyrim. So I don't remember if it ever got patched out. I'm pretty sure it did. But like after you could get a horse from the first town over, I think it was in Whiterun, might have been uh, River Run, Riverstead, can't
Riverwood.
remember. Riverwood. One of the two you could get a horse from, and then you could immediately go to the tallest mountain right to your right, and you could glitch your way up to it before the actual cutscene happens where you meet Alduin. I mean Mario Dragon. Anyways, so you could get up there before that whole thing happens, and there would be a pickaxe embedded in, I believe it was Mithril up there, and that pickaxe was like a unique item, had some like really cool
Okay.
equipment on it, and it was the earliest you could get Mithril.
That pickaxe has always been there. Even when you go up to talk to Parthenax on the mountain, you can also go up to the tip and find that pickaxe. So that's always been there.
Yeah, but the glitch was being able to get there early and skip the cutscene.
That's just the horse. The horses in Skyrim, if you know how to go up a mountain on them, they just break all the physics.
Yeah, I always thought the problem was knowing that shout that could get
Which
you
shout?
past the one that gets you past the storm.
Clear
Mhm.
sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. Nobody can see it, but I'm raising my hand because I know I'm the only one who had this. You guys want to talk about early Skyrim? I played it on the PlayStation 3.
Ooh.
You say ooh, but am I the only one who remembers the issues with that?
Nope.
Well, I didn't play it on the PlayStation 3, so I won't know the issues with that.
I wasn't sure if you'd heard about them. So there was a massive memory issue where the higher you got in level, your save file just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Oh
You're
my
right. I
gosh.
heard about this.
And it would cause it to massively crash a lot. And you had to like periodically restart the system just so that it didn't load so much memory every time that everything would just lag out.
Hmm.
And it took them forever to even somewhat alleviate that problem. I don't even think they ever fully fixed it on the PS3 version. Besides having, I think, every single DLC delayed because they had so many bugs they were trying to work out because they had not done the PS3 version well.
It's not a bug if you turn it into a feature.
I think when they finally put them up, we got them at a decreased price just because we had to wait, like, I think more than half a year from their release date. I only knew a little bit about the Dawnguard storyline because the day it released, I was at a friend's house playing Magic with him, and his brother was playing it in the same room. Other than that, I knew nothing about it because I couldn't play it.
It's all right. You didn't want Dawnguard on release. Everybody died, including the story important NPCs.
I remember.
That's a pretty bad
because
glitch.
It wasn't a glitch. It was the radiant, hi, I'm a vampire. I'm attacking you in a town. And then suddenly everyone's like, he's attacking someone in a town. Let's defend him. And so he kills everyone. Because they're level 1 NPCs. And he's a leveled with you vampire. I feel like that's one of my biggest issues with a game like this. Is they put in interesting events like that. You know, it's interesting, this whole concept of this vampire assassin, because you're opposing the vampires coming after you. But then you also have it in a world where the first time you meet certain NPCs is what sets their character level in the game. So, like, you're now level 20, and it sends a random level 20 thing at you, but you met this NPC at level 3, which sticks their level at NP3, which means they're never going to be useful now.
Wait, it sets
Because
their
these-
level at MP3?
Yeah,
You mean
it's
they're
one of
just
the
an
best
audio
levels.
file?
Yeah, dude, it's one of the best levels in the game, really.
I'm not going to make the comment I wanted to make.
Turn up the jams.
We did an audio test. I don't know if it suddenly dipped in quality and blended together me saying NPC at level 3.
It sounded like you
apparent-
said NP3.
So about that horse armor DLC.
That was Oblivion, sir.
I'm just saying they made the mod in Skyrim.
Yes, the mod was made, but that was an Oblivion thing, and it was then.
It came out in Skyrim for paid DLC when the workshop came up.
I wonder.
You know, when they took the the creation club, I should say, when they took community stuff and put it on it. So the horse armor made it. It made it.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking now that I'm pretty sure this is the first episode where I'm making Will come up with a censor bleep for the editing.
Okay.
Because I swore.
Chris,
Sorry.
you're the first person to swear. Wait a minute.
That's going. That was always going to be me. Let's face it. That was always going to be me. It was never going to be Will.
Nope.
Well, could you put an achievement unlocked below?
Sure.
Well, if I'm going all hog on it, well, Brandon. Well, I'm expecting you to cut this little section out and put it at the end of the video as a censor thing, but we need to record like corridor crew-esque censors because they detect censor pleats. Which is why they made the like subscribe or Sam's weird yell. Shout out to Corridor. Back to the topic at hand. But yeah. Like, the game is immense, and I understand why there are so many bugs because of that. Like, they just went with it. Like, this is going to be huge, and we're going to pack this stuff in. I mean, there's YouTube channels that are still making videos on here are things you didn't know about in Skyrim.
I'm pretty sure the mod of the day, like the daily mod channel, is still going too.
There's probably a few channels like that. Like, people still making mods, whether it's big, small, or whatever. And that's just always... Okay, so talking about the Elder Scrolls games in general for a second, what was the first one everyone played?
Pretty sure I did Morrowind, then Oblivion, and then Skyrim.
I entered in on Skyrim.
I also started with Morrowind, though I didn't... That one was on Xbox, which was the funniest thing. And then played Oblivion on PC, and then played Skyrim. But the first time I got to play Oblivion on PC, I played through it for so long. And then I discovered that there were mods, and I had never, ever experienced mods with things like that before. And I figured out how to install them and tried them out, and it was great. There's such an interesting amount of stuff out there when it comes to it. And that was kind of my first experience with stuff like that. And again, looking at it, it was gigantic. The amount of mods were insane.
Well, they do say that recreation is the sincerest form of flattery, and that's kind of how I see the mods and the workshop stuff, that people care so much about the game that they make stuff for it.
Now, Will, if I know that quote right, I believe that it is...
imitation.
Imitation is the most sincere
I can never remember the first word.
It's all right. Imitation gets annoying after a long time.
And honestly, as it is, I don't think... Can anyone name anything that is, like, actually tried to imitate the Elder Scrolls type things? I know there's games that have been called, like, oh, it's like them. You know, when Dragon Age first released, everybody wanted to say that about it. But they were different games. I don't feel like anything's tried to replicate Elder Scrolls overly that I can think of. There's probably been, like, smaller attempts.
So, if we're talking about, it's got to be a sandbox, but it has open world story choices, there have been them. Vampire the Masquerade, the old version.
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines?
Yeah, it did Skyrim-esque things before Skyrim came out.
Well, I wasn't even saying just Skyrim, I was just saying Elder Scrolls in general. Because even the actual Elder Scrolls games were the weirdest thing. Shout out to when I heard about the first one that I knew about was Arena, when I read about that years after it's released, and they're just like, yeah, they had the whole world in it. The size was to scale, so if you tried to walk from, like, Morrowind to the Imperial capital, it would literally take you days of walking in real life, which is why there was a fast travel system. Shout out to that when I read that fact and was just like, just went, what? Like, who would make that a thing?
Some people who really care.
Or some people who have a good algorithm for dynamic terrain generation.
and then some weird ideas at story. Because Skyrim itself was a rather easily contained story. So was Morrowind and Oblivion. But then you go back to like Daggerfall, which had a really good story. And then you look at its like impact on the greater story. They're like, well, we had this branching ending. So do we have to just choose one? Or no, I know, guys. We'll have this event called the Warp in the West, where apparently causality and in time stopped. Every single ending happened at once. What?
Mic drop.
Like, credit where credit is due. They have some really good and in-depth lore for so much stuff in the Elder Scrolls. I can't follow it on some of these things. Like, I can. I just don't want to.
It's a lot to dive into.
Like, it's one of those things. Like, I follow Destiny lore when I read it better than Elder Scrolls lore. And they literally invent, as far as I've seen, they are one of the main users of the term paracausality, i.e., outside of causality of the universe, which is basically outside of physics.
I mean, the whole idea of the Elder Scrolls is beyond the realm of the norm.
Yeah, they are a paracausal thing. I don't think... People can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I've only ever seen paracausal used in reference to Destiny. But it does mean stuff like the Elder Scrolls. It is outside causality. Technically, magic is outside of causality in any sort of game, except for in-universe in those games. But again, I feel that's why Destiny is kind of the one that actually uses it first, because they're ostensibly magic powers in a universe that shouldn't. Whereas in the Elder Scrolls, its magic powers are that universe. And yes, Will, we know. You're waiting to talk about how you love playing wizards. So why don't you say that?
I was just gonna ask about kind of get back more onto Skyrim and ask what your favorite parts of it are. Like, what's your favorite storyline and such?
Well, let's start with you then.
I enjoy the Mage's College quest line.
Ding, 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 ding. Called it. Called it. It is a good storyline. I think it's one of the longest. And how about you, Brandon?
So, I mean, you've got to guess. You've got to guess which one, because I think it's kind of obvious if you take all of them into perspective, which one I'd be drawn to.
The Bard's College quests.
Nah. They're fun, but it's not my favorite.
I feel like I normally would have said that if you actually got to play the music at the end. Then Brandon would have been all over it.
Yeah, if it had like literally you start jamming out and stuff and you get like special abilities with music, I would have been all over it. But no, it's not that. Come on, guys.
Okay, I will simply ask. It is a major quest line thing for you, not a smaller one?
No, it's not a side quest. It's got a major arc.
The main quest?
No, not the main quest. Can completely be skipped, but it's a major arc.
But for you, I feel like, what I know of you, you would either feel compelled by some of the interesting lore that gets brought up in the Dark Brotherhood, or you just enjoy the companions.
So, ironically, first playing the game, immediately drawn to the companions, but the one I fell in love with was the Dark Brotherhood, And I love the Dark Brotherhood for so many of the wacky, zany things that happen, but most importantly, Cicero and the insistent calling of you being the listener. Oh, I love that to death.
Hey, I got a question for you then.
Yes.
Do you always do the before mission of the Dark Brotherhood with Cicero?
Yes. Yes. I also love that wagon scene.
Which choice do you usually make?
You know, I I let it vary depending on the kind of character I'm playing through the playthrough. So I really wouldn't say there's one choice over the other.
Okay.
And then, if Brandon's going to make you guess, I'm going to make you two guess. Which quest line do you guys think I usually always go through?
Thieves Guild.
Yeah.
I
That is a
think
good guess.
I think the one you
That is a good
always
guess.
go through is the. Well, I mean, I could just say the main story, but no. We're talking about your favorite, so I'm
Well,
gonna
let's
say
talk at me on that one when I'm one of the two people in our group that has had a character deliberately skip gaining the shout ability for as long as you could.
so. I'm gonna say either
I've
the
done that
civil.
before.
I'm gonna say it's either the Civil War or the one with the elves. The not the Thalmor, right? Thalmor. They're
They're kind of in a lot of different things, but they're mostly
when with the
involved in
emissary and the Imperials.
The
that's part of the main quest.
Yeah.
I swear that led into another major arc that's not part of the main story.
No.
Nope.
Okay, so then I'm just guessing Civil War.
So mine's actually a bit of a cop out. I honestly really like the DLC stories, both
Okay.
Dragonborn and Dawnguard.
No, that's a fair choice. They are major quest stories, even though they were added later.
I feel like yes, if we just talk main game, you were right in Thieves Guild, but
You just like the characters there.
I think he likes the armor.
I do really like light armor stuff, and the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood armor are basically some of the best lighter armors you get. But even with stuff like that, I like, because again, I really like the story of these games to the point that some of the stuff they delve into, the Thieves Guild delves into the interesting backstories of these different figures, and thus this, without spoilers, a betrayal that happened that has then shaped everything from then on and uncovering as it goes. Whereas I like Dawnguard and Dragonborn because just that expanding of knowledge of what's going on with certain things, and then learning from that as you explore these new events and what that leads to, in Dawnguard, when you get to a certain point of it and you explore the location where souls that have been soul trapped go to, which was an entirely new thing. Or, oh, by the way, there are actually some snow elves who are still alive as people and not these degenerative monsters they've become.
Now here's a question with your Dawnguard. Which path do you usually take?
Dawnguard. I usually always go Dawnguard over the vampires, just because crossbows are a thing.
See, some of the most interesting lore bits happen in the Dwemer sections of the game.
I got it.
Oh yeah.
For all the interesting dynamics that are brought about due to the characters that reside in the world, all of the Dwemer side quests and even some of the ones that are related to the major arcs, you'll find a lot of stuff just on items or being strewn about you in the environment, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it's
So,
always. Sorry, yes, Chris?
does anyone else walk through those ruins constantly expecting any of those decorations they have that are shaped like heads,
Yes.
to just them be like they never are, as far as I know. But I just always expect to walk into one where they've programmed those to like follow you with their eyes, or like
It's because of Bleak Fall. It's because of Bleak Falls Burrow. That first time we went in there, and literally one of the skeletons comes out of the wall and attacks you.
It's not even just Bleak Falls Barrow. You know what it is?
What?
I always expect one of those to start like talking at me, because thinking about it, they remind me of the demon doors in Fable.
Oh, you're right. That's so true.
They just kind of look similar, and I just always expect one of them to start like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And that I would freak out if it's just like suddenly something like that started shouting in some loud, intimidating voice behind me while I'm trying to sneak through this thing.
Oh man, that's great.
You know
so,
what? Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that each of the quests, it seems, does go into those Dwemer areas too.
There's just that's always kind of been a thing. There's just so many interesting like old ruins. I feel like, if I remember correctly, this one was the most that has lots of Dwemer ruins, whereas Oblivion had Ayleid, I think they were called, ruins, which were this like elven human merge group. I think like they worked together. Maybe it might have just been elves. And then Morrowind had like old school weird burial mounds and stuff like that. I feel like Skyrim did the most of the Dwemer ruins.
Mm-hmm. And then just having that whole Undercity area.
Oh, I think it was called Blackreach.
Yeah, something like that.
That one, that ginormous one, yeah.
And the fact that they had so many openings that could reach the surface.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's one of those things that, like, there's so much interesting about stuff when it comes to, like, lore and these areas they've built. And I feel like it has that age-old problem of they've built just such a gigantic world that there's always going to be so many questions and things that people are interested in that they're never going to be able to get to all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Dwemer especially, like, that's one of those things where everyone wants to know, like, what actually happened to them, and are you ever going to bring them back up, or are they ever going to come back, maybe, as, like, a plot of something? And I feel like the answer just has to be no. We never intend to do anything with it because we know we're never going to get to anything we'd want to do with it.
I almost think they could have an Elder Scrolls game that's permanently underground to represent being underneath all of Tamriel, where it'll actually live, or just delving completely into the ruins there.
It would be interesting, but I feel like the issue with it is if it's a game the size or length of many of these bigger Elder Scrolls games, it would just get too samey when it comes to like visual environments. That's one of the best things about Skyrim, kinda. Over, like, Morrowind had it, but the graphics at the time weren't the best. Like, include link and or if Will can somehow find a clip of an Argonian walking in Morrowind to show just like the weird animation back then.
I think that they could actually pull off a full underground one. So like it's easy to say, oh yeah, well, you've seen one cave wall, you've seen them all. But the thing is, we're talking about a magical fantasy universe here.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying there won't be variety.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of option.
But sadly, we actually have to talk about that at a later time because we are out of time. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us in our ranting and talking about video games, and in this case, Skyrim. Any last words from you guys? No? Okay. So thank you again for joining us. Make sure to check out our other videos. Click the subscribe button and that bell icon. Leave a comment of what you think we should talk about, and we will see you later.